Welcome or welcome back. I am here to give you the top 3 reasons why healthcare professionals often lose their licenses. Let's jump into it. So, first things first, they are caught providing patient care of some sort under the influence. Now, under the influence, that could be alcohol, that could be drugs, that really could be anything. Usually it's the first two that I mentioned there, but it could perhaps be under something else. Or perhaps under their own medical care of other things where they're perhaps, let's say, taking a medication where it inebriates their ability to be able to perform certain tasks, as in maybe do surgeries or maybe perform certain things in the healthcare world of things. This is a big one. And the reason I say this is a big one is because this particular item and or like course, if you will, doesn't necessarily mean that something has to go wrong. And that is probably the biggest misconception there is. In this particular arena, basically it just falls under gross negligence or negligence in and of itself. And that just because there's a potential or perhaps the potential to be able to put harm to another individual, it can put your license at risk. And this is one of those things I have seen. Now, again, typically the general response from the public is maybe the person had an issue, or maybe they had something going on, and perhaps their provider or the workplace, if you will, did not provide the support that that individual needed. And it could be true in one of two things. Now, the first thing of it is your employer cannot provide support where they don't know that support is needed. So in this particular situation, if either yourself or if you feel that you have a family member or colleague, perhaps who is in a situation where they do need further support or help, advise them to speak to their HR representative. And again, a lot of folks, will come to say, well, why would someone snitch on themselves? Or why would, a colleague come in and snitch on them? It could perhaps, lead to an adverse action. Here's the deal. I have had several cases and worked with several individuals where perhaps there was further support and or other guidance, maybe via programs, maybe something that the employer offers. That's usually the best case scenario. If they already have a program and things in place and that's something that they can offer, perhaps they can put the employee in the program. Perhaps there are other things that can be discussed or work out in place for the healthcare provider. So do not rule it out. It's best to have that discussion, see what options, of course, are available, and take it from there. Number 2, medical errors and or missteps. Now, again, medical errors can range from simple things to like missed dose, depending on what the item is, to more complex things, as in medical procedures where the procedure was for the right knee and the person came out with a new left knee, those kind of things. So gross negligence and or medical errors are another reason why individuals or healthcare providers may lose their licenses. Now, depending on what the particular error is, can also depend on the response to what that error is. Oftentimes, depending on the situation and or circumstance as deemed by the review board, they will determine the appropriate course of action. And or another thing to consider is the frequency. The frequency definitely wraps into what is also needed. So an example, I have worked with healthcare professionals who had medical errors or med errors, but they continue to be the same med error. So let's say if the med error is administering medication, and in the administering medication piece of it, it continued to be the wrong dosage. Whether this was noted by a supervisor who was on shift, or maybe perhaps a colleague, that perhaps then may lead to maybe that, individual just needs more training and development and to be able to accurately and put in the measurement in whatever increment is needed for the correct dosing. That could be an error. If that employer or individual goes through their appropriate training, they come back to the floor and they're able to, demonstrate that they've learned the adequate new material, then perhaps the employee could quote say that they are reformed and go back into the workplace. So that could be an example of that. Another example in that particular area could be if there's a concept. Again, this leads kind of back to training, but if there's a concept of perhaps either the healthcare policy procedures or at that particular facility entity and or what that looks like. So an example, one thing that I have seen quite a bit, and it wasn't specific for a healthcare professional, but it segued into it as it pertained to the diet of diabetics. And I thought this was an interesting scenario because the piece of it actually wasn't with the healthcare professional, but the healthcare professional ended up catching it when it came to the unit. So basically, in the kitchen, there were certain foods or a list of certain approved foods for individuals who had a general, eating diet, no restrictions. Then there were restrictions. The restrictions could be, let's say, if they were for diabetics, certain sugars or a particular percentage of sugar for certain recipes for certain individuals. And then there were other restrictions where if they were like soft foods, so on and so forth. On those approved lists, it had come about where some of the desserts, if you will, on the less sugary list, as it pertained to some individuals, were not as tasty, if you will. And as tasty as to say that maybe perhaps they felt that they were bland, or perhaps that they felt that they were not as palatable as they could be. And in that realm of things, I did have a few individuals at one particular healthcare facility decide to tweak the recipe to make it better. However, this particular, recipe in our lineup was specific to diabetics. We ended up where we ended up. And again, this is how HR gets in the mix. Oftentimes, decisions are made and we are quote, reactive in that manner. In that particular situation, it ended up coming to the unit, ended up coming to the floor, and in that realm of things, there was a patient to say, you know what, this is a bit too sweet. Maybe this isn't something I should tap into and engage further. And then the healthcare professionals were able to kind of engage and get to the root of the issue, and we worked it out in HR. So that is definitely number 2. Number 3, this is the biggest one, and the number 3, the biggest reason why most healthcare professionals lose their licenses is because they simply forgot to renew it. I hate to laugh. It's not funny. It's just one of those things. Of all of the things that I have hit my desk probably through the years, the biggest, or the most rather, number of actions have been for what they call failure to maintain licensure. So in the failure to maintain licensure category, basically what that means is you cannot practice here. For most positions, if you will, in the professional world of things, you have to have a license of some sort. For nurses, for doctors, for optometrists, for psychiatrists, psychologists, whatever, realm of things, certain therapists, right? Therapists and just in general, counselors, social workers, there are licenses that you have for these roles. And to be able to continue working in these roles, you must maintain your license. Now, for most entities, if not all, the license will expire in whatever frequency, whether it's every year or every other year, depending on your particular license that you hold, on your birthday. I think it was a great idea, whoever came up with it, because most people say, oh, it's my birthday, I gotta go and check into this or look into that. And then they know, hey, oh, ding, 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 I gotta renew my license too. So I think for a lot of folks, it does work out well because they know it's something that they have to do. But for the rest of us, in the world of things, it is not. It is not one of those things that happen. And as soon as the license lapses, again, of course, we will have to reach out and say, unfortunately, because of failure to maintain licensure, you may not be able to practice with us at this point in time. Now, of course, this is a simple, fix, as in go renew the license, pay the fee, or follow up with the appropriate items. Sometimes there's a retrain period for certain licenses where you have to prove that you've either been working for a period of time to be able to, quote, stay current or what's considered to be relevant in today's world and or age of things. And that's not specific to the healthcare world of things. That could be for cosmetology. That can be for nails. That can be for hair. That can be for a variety of different things. Same thing with nutrition. Nutrition, they have certain things where they have licenses too. So it is a conglomerate or mix of things, but I think it's a very, very interesting piece and probably one of the most common that you would not think. If you found this video helpful and or interesting, or if you had a colleague that's not practicing and they're not telling you why, it's probably one of those 3 reasons I mentioned. Definitely hit me in the comments if you know or feel that there's another reason that healthcare providers lose their licenses that I did not list in this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.